A warning. The North Pole seems different. It's still the de facto headquarters for Santa and his helpers, but it's less quaint and wondrous, a little more grown up. The shop windows are filled with fewer toys and more electronics and practical things. The movie theater isn't playing cartoons. Instead, they're showcasing It's a Wonderful Life. The elves look less cherubic, wearing earthier, more neutral tones. There's still plenty of tinsel and candy, but this time, along with cinnamon and peppermint, I can clearly make out the scent of reindeer shit. The differences aren't so dramatic that they shock me, not until I see Mrs. Claus. Gone is the tiny round woman with wrinkled flesh. This time, Mrs. Claus looks like Miss Lynch, the English teacher I had a crush on all throughout junior high. She's thin-waisted and has a flat stomach, seemingly devoid of body fat, and yet her breasts and backside are like an after picture at the plastic surgeon's office. She has lips like a well-fed rose and eyes that say everything. This is the woman who almost single-handedly fueled my pubescent awakening. It was a relationship totally innocent on her end, but every time I volunteered to read in class, I was making my move. Nicholas notices the change too. His eyebrows lift as he watches her enter with a tray of cheese and sausages. "Well, hello, boys," she says, stooping to place the tray on a table by the fireplace, her plunging neckline reminding me why I hated getting called on to stand at the head of her class. "I hope you're enjoying your tour of the workshop." She winks at me, and all my blood leaves the upper extremities. "I am," I say, watching her with growing interest. "I'm enjoying it so much. Thank you." "Oh, goody!" Mrs. Claus gives Nicholas a kiss on the top of his bald head, and his eyes roll back in ecstasy. "Thank you for being so prompt for your appointment." "My appointment?" Nicholas asks, trying not to sound overly eager. "Yule is here to get approval on the new line." A tubby elf greets us with a humorless expression. His 3 assistants each pull a wagon behind them. The items inside are covered with patchwork quilts. Nicholas clears his throat, getting into character.
"Oh dear, I didn't realize that was scheduled for tonight. As you know, I'm quite busy, it being Christmas Eve and all."
"Herr Claus," Yule says in a thick German accent, "my demonstration will only take a moment of your time, and I must get your immediate sign-off on the design in order to make our deadline." Pushing an elbow into Nicholas's ribs, I say, "Yeah, Santa, do your job."
"Ugh, right, yes, okay then."
Nicholas sits and offers me the seat beside him. I feel a tinge of jealousy when Mrs. Claus sits on the arm of his chair, dangling her thigh-high heels over his boots.
"Take it away, Yule."
The elf lowers his eyebrows at Nicholas before dismissing Santa's strange behavior. "As you know, we have been having a problem with our rocket ships. Clearly, they are not as popular as they were when NASA was putting cosmonauts into orbit or on the moon, but some requests persist. The challenge we face is there is no universal standard for what a rocket should look like anymore, what with the Chinese and the Russians and all the eccentric billionaires with their own models. What we need from you, Herr Claus, is final approval for the model which most speaks to adventure and exploration." Yule waits for Nicholas to respond, which he finally does, after a brief pause.
"Fine, good. Show us what you've got."
"Ja!" Yule spins, clicking his heels, and motions for the first quilt to be removed. The first toy rocket that's revealed is retro science fiction. It would fit right into Buck Rogers, Forbidden Planet, or any of the films from the Atomic Age. Once it's been revealed, all faces turn to Nicholas.
"I like this," he says, clearing his throat. "It's classic."
Another gesture, and the second quilt falls. This model is more like a commercial airliner, with some features worked in that are more common amongst modern drones. Nicholas says,
"Oh, much more contemporary. Is the last one more futuristic?"
"Ja." Yule seems disappointed the surprise is gone, but he soldiers on, giving the sign to drop the last quilt. It's obvious Santa's little helpers have put a lot of attention into this design. It looks like a miniature from one of the Star franchises, Trek or Wars, but instead of being born out of 20th century inspirations, it's a wholly original creation.
Ooh, yes, I like it. Go with this one. Ja!
Yule nods to his assistants, who wheel the rockets away. Reaching out with a clipboard and feather quill, the elf says,
"Please sign here, Herr Claus."
Nicholas takes the pen and gives me a sideways glance. He makes his mark, hunching over so I can't see what he's written, and hands the stationery back. Bowing and clicking his heels a final time, Yule thanks us and heads on his way. Mrs. Claus gives her imposter of a husband another kiss and heads off into the kitchen. I swear as she walks away, someone is beating a sexy drum solo. Nicholas blushes. His jaw hangs, his mouth waters. He gives his head a couple of assertive shakes, crossing and uncrossing his eyes, until a serious expression returns to his face. Collecting himself with a few cleansing breaths, he asks me,
"Are you ready?"
As we step into the chamber of 6 doors, Nicholas signals for me to wait. Holding his palm to the crack of the last door, he checks for a draft. Pleased with his findings, he takes an extra second to pull on the knob and make certain the door is locked up tight. While he's doing that, I'm studying the 3rd nameplate. It reads, Ludus. The literal translation is something like game. As one of the 7 types of love, it's a flirtatious passion, fun and playful. Nicholas rolls the key between his forefinger and thumb.
"Do you think you might know our next destination?"
I acknowledge him by bouncing my head in the affirmative. I might, but I'm not sure who we need to talk to.
"Only one way to find out."
Nicholas pushes the key into the lock, but before he opens the door, he turns back.
"It seems like you're getting pretty good at navigating your timeline, so I should warn you to be extremely cautious."
Nicholas picks up on the subtle movement of my eyes and follows them to the 6th door. He uses his finger to brush away the sheen of moisture left on his forehead from the storm.
"A door can swing both ways. That what-if that tried to kill you came from in there. You don't have to go in to unleash those nightmares. If you keep breaking rules, you could let them all out."
I remind him, he talked to me.
"I warned you not to interact with your memories, Paul. These aren't my rules."
Nicholas watches me shift my attention back to the door.
"Let's just hope my warning hasn't come too late."